Good morning. We're here in the Prado Museum a couple minutes before opening for our weekly sessions in English. Thank you so much for joining us today. We thank our donors from the American Friends of the Prado Museum for making sessions like this possible. Check us out, as well as our sister organization, Fundación Amigos del Museo del Prado. So we're here in room 61A today to take a look at this gigantic work of art here by Vicente Cutanda. This work of art is called Workers on Strike in Vizcaya. As you can tell looking at me, I'm a pretty tall person and it is really enormous. This work of art won first prize in the International Fine Arts Exhibition 1892, and it's a really great example of social realism, which Cutanda was really interested in throughout his career. So we're going to take a look at it together today. So first, starting off with what's in the painting itself, the composition. What we see is on the right side, taking up almost half of the painting, this cluster of workers, all sort of raising their hands in the air, clustered around this one central figure who's elevated above everyone else in this moment of jubilation, of energy, and more than anything, of unity. The way that Cutanda has depicted this group of people is also unique. If we look at person, we notice that we're looking at the back of their body or their face in profile. We see their strong forms in movement, but more than anything, this group of people is depicted as a unit, right? They're all together. Their individual identities aren't as important as who they are as a group. And that Cutanda is doing that in order to tell us this story about collectivity, right? This moment of deciding to go on strike. We can also take a look at the painting in general, the environment that Cutanda has depicted. We're in a smoky place. The colors are gray. We have some highlights in blues and sort of rusty reds. And in the background, we can see, these kind of fiery flames. We're in a metallurgic space where we're processing metals and minerals from the earth. So it gives us a sense of the intensity of this work, what's happening in order to turn ore into iron. I also want to point out over here in the other half of the painting, the main focus is actually this container, but more important are the figures who are right here in front of us. So we have a woman and child. She's grabbing his wrist, trying to hold him back from wherever he's trying to go, holding a bottle of something perhaps that she was bringing to a family member in the workspace. Now, in some ways, these characters help to really anchor the story back to reality, right? So we're told this story of a moment of the strike, of collectivity, but also reminded that the impacts of the working space, of the plight of the worker, beyond the working environment. So the domestic space, the world in general, that goes beyond. So what was going on at this point in Vizcaya? This is the question. In the year 1890, there was a large general strike in Vizcaya, which we see depicted in this painting here. So Bilbao is the capital city of Vizcaya, which is a region within Euskadi in the north of Spain. So in the year 1890, the company La Horcanera was one of the largest producers of ore and iron in Spain. Between 1876 and 1890, they were doubling their productions every single year. So finally in the year 1890, we had this general strike. It began with just 200 workers at one mine who started the strike, and then word spread quickly throughout the region. Up to 30,000 workers all were on strike at the same time. Now, because this was becoming such a large movement, the Socialist Party came in and took over the protest, and at that point they were interested in marching on Bilbao. The army intervened, and they were able to come to an agreement with the company, which led to a change in the working conditions, so limiting working hours to 10 hours a day in the mines, as well as making it not compulsory to live in the barracks that were local. So Cutanda, who is from the north, he's from Aragon, which is another region in the north of Spain, was living in the north at that time and was really transfixed by this story. And he had a kind of background in terms of interest in social paintings. He was always kind of painting these sensational scenes, but this story really captured him, and it ended up being a great focus for him that really captured the interest of viewers at the time. So in 1890, after the strike, he actually went to Bilbao, but also to some other mining sites in France to study what is it to work in a mine. And so he was looking at three different aspects when he was there. First, the actual logistics of what does the space look like, what are the working conditions of the workers, but then also looking at the workers as individuals. How do they dress? What does their form look like? How do they move around the space? How can I depict them in sort of the most respectful and complete way possible? But more importantly, and kind of what differentiates what Cutanda was doing in this painting and made it really different and new for the time, was he was also thinking about the social conscience of the worker, of the miner. He was interested in studying how they came together as a collective in order to fight for their rights, not just as individuals, but as a group. And so that made this study really unique and pretty new for Spain at the time. So he spent a year doing that research. In 1891, he headed to his studio and spent nearly a year creating this painting. His studio was in Zaragoza, which is in Aragon, also in the north of Spain. A pretty cool little detail we see here on the left side, just painted on the side of this container. We have his signature, Vicente Cutanda, but also he's kind of inscribed the two important locations for this painting. Bilbao, where the strike was located and where he's placed this painting, and then also Zaragoza, where his studio was in 1892 when he finished the painting. So in terms of the trajectory of this painting throughout time, 1892 it won this first prize. In 1893 it entered the Prado's collection. But then another really important thing happened. So after the Spanish Civil War, which wrapped up in 1939, the Franco regime took over here in Spain, and this painting was deemed as not appropriate in terms of its subject matter. So it was put into storage, its unique frame was removed, and it was rolled up, and it was considered lost for many years. In 2001, it was rediscovered. It was in poor condition, and it was sort of recuperated to its current form. I think when you walk into this room and see this painting, obviously it's a striking image that is very inspirational, but the frame itself is a pretty interesting aspect to it. If you look at it closely, you can see that it's really working to look like metal beams that would be used in these industrial spaces. Now remember that this time in Spain in the 19th century and across the world, this was a moment of industrialization, of big growth, and that made this theme of workers' rights so important. This frame itself is made actually from wood and then patinaed on top to made to look like these steel beams, but it's not actually that. They recreated this frame based on photos of the original painting and did a really amazing job in terms of giving us a sense of how it looked in its initial form. So thank you so much for joining me for the exploration of this work. I hope that you've enjoyed Cutanda as much as I have, and we look forward to seeing you next week for our weekly sessions in English.